You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
What if your weekly grocery haul could actually build a stronger food system? What if it supported the farmers near you, reduced waste, and tasted better too? It's great to be with you here today from behind the mic in the One Bite is Everything studio. I am your host, Dana DiPrima, and with over 100 episodes now weekly, One Bite is Everything is here with you to connect the food on your plate with the greater world to all of the things that matter to you. Often we are covering all of those issues at once. Food that is healthy for you and your family, that helps to build community, making lasting connections between businesses and people, supporting and rebuilding our land, and protecting our water so we can thrive in a healthy, sparkling environment. And doing all of these things while catalyzing prosperity in local and regional economies. We are doing all of that today, and that's a thrill. Today, we're talking with Michael Robinov, the co-founder of Farm to People, a New York-based business that's reimagining how local food gets from the farms to the people without losing its soul in the process. Michael didn't just stumble into this work. He grew up in the early days of the organic movement, worked at a farmer's market stall in Union Square, and ultimately brought his dad, an OG natural food pioneer, back into the mix. In this episode, we talk about where local food meets modern technology, why regional matters, and how Farm to People has built a transparent supply chain that can rival your grocery store without becoming one. It's a conversation about small steps, big systems, and the power of one box of vegetables at a time.
It's so really crazy to see how industries change, like to think about what natural and then organic movement was in the 80s and 90s. And today you see some of these people in local or regenerative. As a result, like natural is a basically meaningless label now. And organic is becoming a less meaningful label as it becomes more corporate and $100 billion business.
In the 80s and 90s, while industrial farming was busy pumping out pesticides and fertilizers at a staggering rate, 2 million more pounds every year, regenerative farming was quietly fighting back. This movement wasn't just about growing food. It was about restoring the land, using crop rotation, composting, and cutting synthetic chemicals to rebuild soil health. Organic sales surged from $1 billion in 1990 to over $13 billion by the end of the decade, proving that customers were hungry for healthier, more transparent options. Meanwhile, community-supported agriculture, or CSA, took off, putting local farmers back in direct touch with customers. This wasn't just a trend, it was a revolution in the making. One that challenged the status quo of fast food and industrial agriculture and laid the foundation for the sustainable food movement we know today.
And so there's always these like fringe, like purist groups that that I think you and I are more a part of than we're not. But in really trying to like understand like the essence of where our food comes from and how it's grown and who's making it. And I think caring less about labels and caring more about people, process, and truly knowing our food, which is like why I wanted to create these evenings where I feel like the best way to like get a feeling for your food, or the second best way, I think the best way is to visit Rick on his farm or to visit a farmer on their farm. But the second best way is to really hear it from them and to understand like who these people are and then make a judgment based on that and based on the product as you taste it.
Michael and I started our conversation talking about the community events Farm to People hosts at their kitchen and bar in Bushwick, Brooklyn, a gathering place for curious eaters, conscious consumers, and the farmers and makers who feed them. So tell me what the light bulb moment was for you. When were you like, okay, wait a minute, I'm doing this. I'm going to make a business.
Basically, I convinced my parents to let me take a gap year. In that gap year, which I never went back to, I went traveling. And I think one of the light bulb moments for me was actually like being abroad. We went traveling to India. I went with my partner, who is also my co-founder, Anina. So it's really the co-founding team is really Anina, myself, and my father. And while we were in India, it really struck me this like idea. Well, one, like how everyone kind of says this thing, like we're all entrepreneurs, like everybody's an entrepreneur. And I thought that was like, yeah, just like awesome, because like they had such like entrepreneurial spirit, even when like resources were far less than what we have in America. And also for the first time in my life, I think I really appreciated America. I grew up, kind of my formative years were in like the George Bush presidency, invading Iraq. Like I'm from the Upper West Side. I'm raised quite liberal. And so for me, like a lot of European friends who I thought like, oh, their families and their parents like had it so right and we had it so wrong. And so I had this kind of like interesting, very privileged childhood where I could like poo-poo like all of America. And then like going on this backpacking trip through Southeast Asia, I became really aware of all of the privileges that we have, even despite all of our flaws in this country. And it gave me like a very, very different perspective, and one that I was like excited to come home to. And with that privilege and with the tools that I realized I was lucky to have and shouldn't be resentful of, but should really use for good and not for bad, I came back to New York and had been talking to my dad. He had been really interested in shortening the supply chain as a former retailer, as a former CPG, founder. He was seeing through like mentoring young founders just how complicated and expensive and truly out of reach it was to start a small business. And so he was like thinking, is there a way through technology to shorten the supply chain to connect people directly from farm to people? And so that was his like moment after 40 years, which was my light bulb moment about like, yes, I do believe there is a way through technology and through storytelling to do this.
Michael's father had a pioneering role in the natural products industry, beginning in the 1970s. His father shifted to a healthier lifestyle after discovering macrobiotics and started working as a sales rep at Erewhon. He eventually opened one of the first natural product stores in Brooklyn in 1980, well before chains like Whole Foods gained national recognition. Then later sold the retail stores to open another organic foods business called Mediterranean Organic Brands, sourcing organic foods from places like Greece, Turkey, and Italy. So, safe to say, Michael has grown up in the organic foods world and has adopted his father's entrepreneurial spirit in the space.
He had been poking around with some friends on something that wasn't working. And I was like, wait, here's my basically business plan for how I think this can work. Can you let me take one more year off to try to show you what I think this can be? Luckily, he's an entrepreneur himself. My parents were very open-minded. They were like, whatever, like they weren't super sold on film school. I think they wanted to see like, are you going to really work like around the clock on this? And so I was really fixated on showing them that I could work like every day of the year that I was off, and just went very, very hardcore. And it was a very different concept. We couldn't afford refrigeration. We couldn't afford like a vehicle or anything. So literally like we were in a studio apartment that my parents had a renter for, but she had just left. So I like was like, this is going to be our fulfillment center. And he wouldn't even let me like buy internet because it was $100 we didn't have. So I would like put it on my hotspot. It was like crazy, very, very, very bootstrapped. And we were shipping boxes around the country. I don't even know how people were finding us. It was very scrappy. I would take the doorman's cart and load it up with FedEx and UPS boxes and walk them myself. We couldn't afford a pickup.
And what were you shipping?
Crazy. Like artisanal jams from like Beth's Farm's Kitchen from the market, or chocolate. This was like crazy, but we were Hugh Kitchen's first retailer beyond their cafe. And it was like one of our big breaks is Hugh Kitchen didn't want to do their own pick, pack, and fill third-party shipping for like 4 years. And so they would link everyone to our site. And so as they were growing, I think like one year of business, I don't know, we were like, this is like our second year of business, and we probably did something like $300,000 in sales, and like 50,000 of that was just you kitchen sales. So we were basically just their pick, pack, and
You made
fill
it on chocolate.
center. We made it on whatever we could. We got into the Union Square Holiday Market. We did that. Then I pitched the Union Square Holiday Market on letting us run their Bryant Park location. So we got at like, I guess I was like 23. I convinced them to let me run their 400 square foot like Bryant Park provisions booth. And so we did that for 4 years. That was a great business. And that we were very seasonal. So that business would allow us to basically survive for the other 10 months of the year. I don't know, in terms of like aha moment, I think it was like a mix of like, it was definitely taking a gap year. It was definitely putting together the pieces of like my whole life up to that point of my relationship to food, from like seeing my parents and going on sourcing trips and appreciating food, especially being in a dorm where I was eating dorm food and going to the dorm. It was missing that home cooked meal in a way that I never thought I would. Being at the farmer's market and seeing all that amazing food that I couldn't bring to the dorm because I didn't have a kitchen. So like also like feeling this like still connection to food that now was like somehow out of reach. Talking to my dad about supply chain issues and how the industry had changed over the, I guess at that point, 30, 35 years that he'd been in it. And then really thinking about my passion for storytelling and technology and just being of this very different generation and mindset than my dad in other ways, technical ways and storytelling ways. And then I think also maybe being a little driven to not go back to school to prove myself. I think there's obviously something where I'm driven to succeed.
So tell me what your footprint is now. What does your business look like now? Where, exactly where you are, and then we can talk about what the future looks like.
So as opposed to what we were then, where we were shipping a few things all over the country, now we actually, because of our mission now to really be a weekly solution for our customers and focus primarily on produce and meat and cheese and bread and all the staples that our customers are ordering weekly or bi-weekly, we now only deliver in the 5 boroughs in North Jersey. We're looking at expanding into more of the tri-state, but our goal is not to go national. It's to really build regional food systems, which is a bit different than that initial kind of business plan, which is why I told you it's shape-shifted a lot over the years. Now, today, we service about 8,000 unique households on a monthly basis. So people often ordering at least 2 times per month. So we're delivering over between 4,000 and 5,000 boxes every single week to New Yorkers' homes. And again, our product mix is really, I would say, because we were so focused on produce when we started this new concept, and it was really driven by farm boxes, produce still makes up about 50% of our orders, but we're growing the things that people are adding. So we're now seeing, eggs is, especially this egg crisis has blown up our eggs. I mean, we went from delivering about 1,500 eggs a week to now over 3,000 eggs a week. And that's all happened in the last basically 2 months. It's also a testament to local farmers and their supply chains and, also having a diversified set. We had 2 egg farmers. We now have 4. And basically new egg farmers, I think, see the future with us and see that we're growing and see what our mission is. And that therefore they're prioritizing selling directly to us and taking, a quick dollar with distributors that might drop them as soon as the egg crisis sort of subsides. Assuming it does.
Overall, about how many farmers do you have and what's your radius?
Yeah. So overall, we work with about 150 small farmers and makers. So I'm including makers in that number. So whether it's like, a chocolate maker or a cheese maker, bakers, etc. In terms of direct farm, like produce farmers that we're like now crop planning with, that number is about 10, which is really, really exciting because it means that we're literally talking to them about what to plant, unique varieties, making sure that we have really special items, whether it's like purple okra or bitter melon or unique varieties of cantaloupes and watermelons and all of these different things. Like we're really making sure that we don't have just 165 produce items year round, but that like, even if that's what we have on a weekly basis, we're literally spotlighting over 500 different varieties of produce. But we also do supplement local food, local farms with things further away. This was a necessary. We didn't used to do this all the time, but we would see our sales significantly slump in the winter. And New Yorkers are like, I just can't. I can't eat hot dry turnips and potatoes and squash for every meal. I'm still going out. These are the things I'm still going out and buying when I'm not getting my Farm to People box. And they were like, if you would provide an organic, fair trade, whatever option, I'd love to like buy them. And then I will buy some hot dry turnips and this and that and the next. And our farmers were also like, what are you doing? Please carry these things. If it helps our sales, it's so important. So, we now carry bananas, we carry avocados, we carry lemons and limes. We work with some really cool ranches out in California during the winter to bring in amazing citrus. So we have like Oro Blanco grapefruits, Satsuma mandarins, Shu mandarin. So a bunch of really cool varietals of citrus even that it's not just navel oranges, although we'll have those too.
So I wanted to take a tangent into the grocery store for a second, just because I think that across the country, people express their, shock and surprise over the kind of control that a grocery store has over what's produced in the country, meaning we have a specific kind of tomato that will survive on a truck for a week. And while you are working with these farms and saying this is what our customers want, it's kind of a similar path, although you're trying to continue to be seasonal. And I'm just curious, how do you maintain your standards? How do you not be Kroger's, Michael?
That's a great question. And I think it's a delicate balance that we want to figure out how to do over time. I think right now how we're doing it is by even demanding if we bring in something from a distributor, asking them to source identify it. So unlike a lot of stores that are just like, it's organic from California or organic from Mexico, that's really our last resort. Like even fair trade bananas, like we get them from Equal Exchange. They're a really, really thoughtful cooperative that cares deeply about like the food system in Ecuador, where a lot of these bananas are coming from. So I think it's both the reality of the food system now.
Sourcing food in the U.S. isn't just a simple task. It's a tangled mess of opaque supply chains, mislabeling, and outdated technology. We're supposed to know where our food comes from, but in reality, it's often a game of trust me rather than transparency. Farmers and producers are stuck between the high costs of traceability systems and the struggle to meet growing consumer demand for ethically sourced and sustainable options. Meanwhile, the food industry is riddled with misinformation, leading to fraud and confusion about what's really local or organic. Add in the inconsistencies in regulations across states and the nightmare of global supply chain disruptions, and it's clear. Sourcing real, identifiable food is more complex than ever, and it's time we demand better. If we're going to put food on our tables that aligns with our values, we need the systems to back it up. Otherwise, we're just all eating blind.
We can't fix everything. So there are products that are literally the best option is organic from somewhere, and it's not able to be source identified. But if you look at our produce selection and our produce category, you'll see that that's probably less than 5% of what we carry. It just says organic from somewhere. And in the summer, that probably goes to like 1%, and that's also just a circumstance of being in the Northeast. But during the summer, we're able to source just such a bounty of amazing food. And I think literally the only things that we're not getting locally during that period are lemons, limes, avocados, and bananas, which, we'll never be able to get locally, but we're getting local blueberries, which we're not during, this time of year. We're getting local strawberries from some of that period. Or if we're not getting local strawberries, we're able to get them from, I would call them like a region over, not from Peru or somewhere that far away, which literally blueberries are often coming from Peru. We don't realize it's crazy because local blueberries don't even last. Like everything has been engineered to like please us and to work within the current confines of the world of shipping and freight and air freight and all of that to work for a consumer that like needs blueberries every single week of the year. And we're trying to fight that through education, but also like realizing that if we can move the needle a little bit each time and get someone to try something new, that's like small battles being won as I'm keeping the customer. I think that's like a big shift that we've all had as a team. Like, let's retain the customer. And if 80% of what they're buying can be source identified and local, that's going to be a hell of a lot better than what they're getting at Kroger or what they're getting at Wegmans, where maybe 10% is source identified. I guess that's how we justify it.
I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about like who your customers are, but you talk about storytelling. And so in order to tell a story that's different from the status quo, which is for the most part, we have one really big option and that's supermarkets. And then we have another option, which is a departure from that, which is going to the farmer's market, for example. And you're sitting somewhere in the middle and between that customer and understanding the similarities and differences is important. And I'm just curious about, your storytelling and how you're engaging.
Yeah. Like when you look at our website and when we try to tell the stories of our farmers, we don't really talk about the items that come from further away. So the emphasis is always on, you should be eating this. Even when we get like from Red's Best, like art, which is like works with a bunch of local fishermen, like we're trying to pull in fish that aren't like, while we have swordfish or halibut, we also are trying to pull in like different types of local yellowtail or fluke or mackerel or different things. And really also even when it comes to seafood, like the seasonality of it and trying to use our boxes, which again, like a lot of our customers still will subscribe to, whether it's a produce box or a cook's box. We're using that as like a real channel to like educate on what truly is in season while still giving the customer the ability to customize. I think that was really an important feature for us and an important feature for our customer. While you may have the best intentions to want to eat locally, if you don't like, I'll pick on kohlrabi. If you don't like kohlrabi, everybody picks on kohlrabi. I don't want you to have to get kohlrabi week after week after week. So now you're able to have that control where you can swap it out for carrots or for peppers or for whatever does suit you and your family. And to speak to our customers, I think it's people that they tell us they care about high quality, they care about health. They often more and more are becoming like young mothers and young parents. And so they really now don't just only care about the health of themselves, but they care about the health of more than themselves, their whole family. They see the value, like whereas a young professional who may have like a wonkier schedule and may not be like able to cook every night of the week. We're seeing young families have more of a routine and also really value the convenience of the food being brought to them. So we're sort of at this like really beautiful crossroads where people care about health, care about flavor, care about the sourcing of their food more, but also like have less time to make it to the farmer's market, have less time to even go to the grocery store. And so their options are, Fresh Direct or Amazon or Farm to People as this sort of like alternative where they feel better about kind of food that they're able to source. And then to your point about being a online farmers market meets grocery store delivery, that is a reflection of, I think, what our customers need from us. I often say the farmers market's amazing, but it's not optimized for the consumer. Like when you go to a farmer's market, you have like 8 different times you need to check out. There's not a unified checkout. You have to like stand on different lines here. You got to go to this person. You're almost going, it's at least consolidated into like Union Square or into like a different area, into a small geographic location, but you're still like essentially hitting up like 7 different shops. Whereas like if you go to Whole Foods, you go to the bakery, you throw that in your cart, you go to the meat department, you throw that in your cart, you go to the produce, etc., and then you check out one. And even that can be an inconvenience, but it's greatly more convenient than, the farmer's market. So I think to us, it's like, how do we combine? It's a unified shopping experience. You can jump between categories. You can do it any time of day. If you've got a young kid and you just put them to bed and it's 9:00 at night and you've got 13 minutes to yourself, you can log in and boom, 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 and place an order and have food delivered the next day for your family. So my ambition was always to like take that convenience of Amazon and of Fresh Direct. And while I don't necessarily agree with all of their food sourcing decisions, they've done so much for the world of convenience. It's the same way that you can like love or hate the microwave. Like, I don't use a microwave, but it did some crazy things for society was when it was invented. So it's like, how do we not look at everything as just like, yeah, a negative, but like look at what it's doing societally and try to emulate the things that we think are making a positive impact to try to just help folks.
Is there like a support group for people like you across the country who are doing these kinds of transparent regional farm to people kind of things? Because I feel for people in Texas, if they don't have this, or in, Seattle or Minneapolis, that they have to run the gauntlet on their own without you.
I can't take credit for putting it together, but I was invited by another friend in Philly who runs a company called Philly Food Works, which is similar. And they're all a little different. None of us are like taking the same model exactly. We're all sort of iterating on this idea of farm box companies. So where we were like doing like locally sourced boxes that were mostly customizable, I think, and delivering them. But I know one in like Asheville, North Carolina, one in Atlanta, Georgia, one that had some issues. I don't know if they're still around in Austin, Texas. I don't know one in every city, but there are a few. That's also my longer term ambition, is to use New York as a proof of concept for a regional food system that can be powered by technology, that is able to profitably and sustainably have a system that works. And then you build these networks into other cities, especially in the Northeast. Like, I feel like this needs to be bigger and broader. The population density between Boston and DC is wild. And so with the network we're building out here, and hopefully farms refer farms and customers refer customers, we'll be able to really create such a great regional food system, at least here in the Northeast, if not further afield.
Let's talk about regional food, because this is one of those buzzwords that people don't really understand yet. I think people are hearing, grass-fed, grass-finished, or, gluten or dairy or nut milk. There are all of these things, right? Like that people are talking about. Organic, regenerative, sustainable, like what do all those things mean? And let's dive into regional food and what that buzzword's all about and what people should understand.
For me, regional food is not just about the food you're eating, although it's obviously that. It's eating with the seasons. It's being mindful of what grows where you are. So like a regional diet obviously changes drastically whether you're in Italy or whether you're in California. I mean, the Northeast of the US is quite a harsh climate. It's not the harshest in the world, but it's a longer winter than a lot of other places. It's a shorter growing season than a lot of other places. There's not a lot of tropical fruits or foods, or if you're thinking about coffee or chocolate or sugar in general, that's not native to up here. You're going to want to try to support more maple farmers, more honey farmers. You're going to want to eat more cabbage, more lacto-fermented or fermented foods, because those are great ways to like extend the seasons. And that's going to look very different than if you're, say, in South Florida or in Texas. So I think that like is exciting about regional food and harder to like define is because it has a different definition depending on where you are in the world. So you have to kind of immerse yourself wherever you are to understand what that region should look and feel like, and how your diet should literally, because we're such a global world, should transform so much more than it does. And I think the same way you get off a plane in like, I don't know, Shanghai or Paris or London or Miami, and you see Starbucks, or you see, like the same sort of like fashion store or whatever, like we've sort of like made this like whole world just where like the same shit's available everywhere. And that goes to your food too. And so we like 100 years ago, if you went to Shanghai, you would see a completely different like local marketplace, like not just food, just everything, like the clothes you would buy, the things you would drink, the vendors you'd support. And, now it's just all very homogenous, to use ironically. And so to me, the meaning of regional food and the thing to strive for is really to like also think about even beyond local food and what grows there is also like local economies. When you are in Shanghai buying Starbucks, you're not supporting local Shanghai folks. I mean, I guess you're employing them, but you're not supporting their businesses. I think the same way, if you're buying blueberries from Peru, you're not really thinking about what's the cabbage that I could buy from, Simon's farm. And while that maybe is hard and maybe you're not used to it, this is like a local farmer who's trying to like sustain our earth around us in our general vicinity to make our ecosystem a healthier place. And by doing that and by making our ecosystem a healthier place, we're also making ourselves healthier. So that was a very long-winded way of saying, I think it's even more than just like the food that is regional, but the like meaning of trying to like think about your food dollar and even the people behind the food. And when you think regionally, you should think like neighbors. You should think like people that you can drive to. You could get in a car and within a few hours, you can go visit them. Trying to recommend people do with Ronniebrook. That literally was what changed. Like I went there because I wanted to see, I've been drinking their milk since I was a kid and we've been selling their milk since, and I was like, I want to see. I'd heard many great things. And
good food sourced transparently is at the center of this story and of Michael's life, from his experience as a kid while his father was building his business to where Michael picked up the torch in his own way. That torch is hardwired for technological solutions, and it's a pivotal part of farm to people's future, despite its connection to the land and more bucolic appearances.
I mean, I mentioned a lot, but I think it's really about this idea of technology, which is like the trying to not be a Luddite about local food, which I think a lot of people can be. Like, oh, we have to be artisans about everything and do things the way they used to be done. And that's where I think it's a really interesting with me doing this with my dad, who is of a different generation. He's not a Luddite himself, but I just think it's really important that how do we harness these new technologies and these new ways of thinking to actually help local food.
Technology is changing the landscape of U.S. farming, offering tools like precision agriculture, helping farmers apply water, fertilizer, and pesticides exactly where needed. Drones and satellite imaging give real-time views of crop health, while soil sensors track moisture levels to fine-tune irrigation. AI and machine learning predict weather patterns and pest outbreaks, help farmers act early. Robotic harvesters and automated tractors ease labor challenges. For some, these innovations have led to higher yields and lower costs. Precision ag alone has been shown to boost productivity by up to 70%. But not everyone's on board. High upfront costs, steep learning curves, and a desire to stick with proven methods keep some farmers cautious. The truth is, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. While tech options open exciting doors, the best path forward depends on each farmer's goals, resources, and connection to the land.
I'm optimistic that technology and some of these things that will allow smaller farms to remain competitive, because labor is expensive. Technology can be expensive too, but as you start to scale these things and be smarter about things, if you can eliminate waste along the supply chain, if you can cut costs in certain ways along the supply chain, that just means that like this type of food can be more accessible to more people and therefore have a bigger audience and grow itself. So I think technology can be, if done right, it could, and again, I'm saying this and knowing very, very well that it could go all the wrong way and make cheaper food even cheaper and really create even more of a separation. But if we are conscious about what we're doing and we try to harness technology for good, I know how ironic that can sound at times, but if we can harness technology for good, it can actually like narrow the divide and make great food more accessible to more people. And that's what drives me. That's like my guiding hope in all of this.
Are you picking up from farms? Is that how it gets to you, or are they delivering to you?
Mostly they deliver to us. We actually don't have one of our own vehicles. So we're very asset light. And again, this is all done because we didn't raise any outside venture capital. We've completely bootstrapped the business from day one. And so that has been primarily the way. We've also though now connected with some really, really awesome like truckers in the region that have helped us to create like backhaul situations. So more and more, we're just like, again, connecting all of the resources that already exist using this network to get someone who's got the truck and the refrigerated van or whatever it is to put that to use to help the farmer and to help us and to create these sort of micro distribution channels that can be really, really mighty, because this infrastructure does exist, but is not necessarily connected yet. And that's where I view like our purpose is in connecting that.
So it sounds like you love the farmer side and you love the tech side. What part of this business is the most vexing to you?
It all depends on the day. I love it all and, curse it all depending on the day. Like the technology for many, many years was like the most brutal piece. It was so expensive and we couldn't build it out ourselves. And so we relied on third-party platforms and relied on different contractors to help us, try to spaghetti code something together. And it wasn't good for our customers. It wasn't good for our team. It was really frustrating. And so for a company our size, like very much over index our investment in technology. We've brought on an amazing team all in-house. We have a 5-person tech team, which is a lot for most small businesses in America. We built our own ERP, like open source ERP. So like we're very, very passionate about the technology layer. I think that's one of the things that's transformed the most. Just to give you an example of something that really, really was vexing and so painful, and then to turn it into what I think is one of our real strengths. As we've grown, building out an incredible team, and me being a first-time founder and someone who certainly doesn't have all the answers, like how do I provide a great framework for our team and the ability to thrive is a constant challenge. And I read a lot of books and make a lot of mistakes, but always try to like lead honestly and create the right, hopefully, framework and goals that everybody's excited to strive for.
What does your dad say about all of this, the gap year and where you are now?
It took some time, but I think he's very proud. It took a long time. He's a successful person who is not used to, who was never a good employee for anyone else, self-admittedly. He's an entrepreneur. He brings it all the way back to like elementary school. He would get kicked out of school. Like he's just not good at following directions. And so with him and myself, I think there was a lot of him seeing me make the mistakes that he had made and didn't want me to make, but I'm strong-willed. So it was very frustrating years where we had very, very problematic. But I think now his broader worries are about the political climate and the way the food system and the world is going more generally, both for small business in America. As someone who's been a small business owner, I think he's like greatly worried about just like how the odds continue to get stacked against small businesses, how government policy continues to be about like big business and not about protecting small American businesses and employees. So, there's still this like hippie streak in him, but now it's more as a wiser elder, as someone who's like trying to like look out for the future, and I think has worries there. And I think I'm just a little bit more fearless in going after it, and I think he's proud.
Michael Robinov isn't just delivering groceries. He's rebuilding relationships between people and place, between food and value, between technology and the kitchen table, and between farmers and the customers who sustain them. If you're in New York, Farm to People might already be on your radar or on your doorstep. But the bigger takeaway here is more important. Regional food systems are the future. Not because they're trendy, but because they make sense for health, for flavor, for our environment, and for our local economies. If you're hungry for more conversations like this, be sure to follow One Bite is Everything. And if you loved what Michael shared, check out farmtopeople.com, or better yet, order a box and taste the difference yourself. I am your host, Dana DiPrima. I am so glad that you joined me and Michael today on One Bite is Everything. Can you do us a quick favor? Tell a friend about this episode or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help others find it. This conversation really works with more people like you at the table. See you next week, right here, where One Bite really can take you pretty much anywhere.